Hi, I'm going to talk to you about Skaffold, easy and repeatable Kubernetes development. So, what is Skaffold? It's a CLI tool that makes it very easy to do local development and CI/CD for Kubernetes. It allows you to iterate locally on your applications and deploy them to local clusters or remote clusters. And because it's pluggable, it will let you use the best tooling available for your tasks. Skaffold is open source. You can find it on GitHub. If you like it, please tell us so, and if you really like it, please consider contributing to the project. Let's start with a small demo. We're going to work on a small application that is made of a single pod, and it's going to print hello world every second. And the application will be automatically redeployed each time I change its code. How do I do that? So I need to start with an application. Here I've got a Go application, and there is main.go that basically prints hello Skaffold every 1 second. The application is built with Docker, so I have a Docker file that describes my build. It's a very straightforward multi-stage build. So there is one container to build the Go application and one to run it in production. So that Skaffold understands which artifacts I want to build, I need a skaffold.yaml file which lists all my artifacts. So here I've got only one, and each artifact at the end is a Docker image, so I need to provide a name for my images. Here's the name for my image. And I'm going to deploy those artifacts to a Kubernetes cluster. So I need to give Skaffold a list of Kubernetes manifests I want to use for deployment. Here's the list of my files. Talking about those manifests, here's my manifest that deploys a pod. There's a single container in the pod, and I set the image name to the same name I use in my Skaffold YAML. In reality, it's going to use a fully qualified image name with a tag, but I don't have to care about it because Skaffold is going to build the image, tag it, and replace the tag in that manifest so that I don't have to think about it. Let me show that to you. So I'm going to use the Skaffold dev command that basically watches my files and rebuild my images and redeploys them each time I change a file. So when I run Skaffold dev, it's going to first build my application, tag it, and it's going to deploy it to my local Kubernetes cluster. I'm running Docker for Mac with Kubernetes support. Skaffold automatically detects that so that it doesn't have to push my images, because the Docker daemon that builds the image and the one that's running Kubernetes is the same. So here I can clearly see the logs from my pod saying hello Skaffold. So I'm going to change my sources in a different tab. So here's my main.go. I'm going to say hello world. And when I save the file, the change is automatically detected by Skaffold. That's going to rebuild the image, retag the image, and redeploy the image. And you can see the updated logs. Just to show you that it's actually running on Kubernetes, and it's actually the right logs. Okay. I think this is already pretty nice, that I don't have to think myself when I need to rebuild my images, when I need myself to tag the images, to change my manifest so that the proper image is deployed to the cluster. But I can do much better than that. For example, I can, with the same Skaffold.yaml, I can deploy it to production. I'm going to deploy it to a remote GKE cluster. And it's not going to be built locally on my machine with Docker for Mac, but it's going to be built on Google Container Builder, so that I've got a repeatable remote Docker image builder. And I'm going to demonstrate the use of Skaffold profiles to do that. So I'm going to use a different command from Skaffold. I'm going to use the Skaffold run. It does the same thing as dev. It builds the image, tags it, pushes it, deploys the manifest to a Kubernetes cluster. The only thing is that it's not going to watch the file changes. It's going to do the build, push, deploy only once. But before I do that, I need to switch to another cluster. This cluster has more nodes. I'm going to make sure that nothing is running on the cluster, nothing. So I'm going to just do Skaffold run, but I'm going to activate a profile that's defined in my Skaffold YAML. Let me show that to you before I run it. So I've got a build section, deploy section, I've got profiles with each profile has a name, and I can activate it using a CLI flag. So here, when I activate this profile, the building of my images will not be done locally, which is the default, is going to be done on Google Cloud Builder. So here, it's gonna read all the sources for my application. It's going to send it as a table to Google Cloud Storage. From that, Google Cloud Container Builder will be triggered. We'll retrieve the sources, build the Docker image. It will push it to Google Container Registry, and then it's going to talk to the Kubernetes cluster. That's going to pull the image from the registry, and boom, we're going to have the application deployed in production. We should very soon see the logs for it. Actually not. Here it is. My application is deployed in production using the same Skaffold YAML, using the same command. So I showed you that you can use local Docker or Docker for Desktop or Minikube to build your Docker artifacts, but Skaffold does also support Bazel artifacts. So it's a way to build your Docker images without needing a Docker daemon. It can build any image type that's supported by Bazel. So it's very easy to build a Java application, Go application, Node application with Bazel. It's going to produce a Docker image at the end, but you don't require a Docker daemon to do that. So Skaffold supports both those Docker and Bazel builds. If you want to build remotely, not on your machine, you can use GCB, which is Google Container Builder, or you can use Canico, which is a new project we announced a few weeks ago that makes it possible to build Docker images from a Docker file directly on a Kubernetes cluster without additional privileges like mounting the Docker socket. Skaffold also supports multiple ways to tag your images. Basically, you don't have to think about it because the default is quite sane. It will use the git commit as an image tag, but you can also use the checksum tagger that will detect the SHA-256 of the image to tag your image, or you can also have a custom tagger for which you provide a Go template with multiple, where you can put the digest or things like that in your custom tag. And of course, Skaffold supports multiple ways to deploy your applications. So one way is to use kubectl. So it basically shells out kubectl, talks to your current Kubernetes cluster, and will deploy your application based on a list of manifests, or you can use Helm to do that. In the future, of course, we're going to try to add more ways to build your images. We're going to try to add more ways to deploy your applications. Okay, so now we're going to try to deploy a slightly more complicated application. It's not going to be the single pod that prints hello world to the console anymore. It's going to be a microservices-based application composed of 3 services, an Nginx frontend to serve HTML, JavaScript, CSS, There's a REST API developed in Go for the backend, and all the data are stored in Postgres database. So the application is basically a web app that shows you two Google Cloud Platform hexagons, and you can try to guess which one corresponds to a given product name. A lot of fun. I described the three artifacts for my three services in a scaffold.yaml. Each of those artifacts is a Docker image at the end, and the sources for each artifact are in separate subdirectory. I listed the manifests that are needed to deploy to Kubernetes, and like for the previous example, I created a GCB profile if I want to override the default behavior that builds my images locally. If I activate this profile, I can then build remotely on Google Cloud Platform. We're going to deploy this application locally in dev mode. To do that, I first need to switch back to using Docker for desktop. Docker for desktop local Kubernetes cluster. It's still a single node cluster, yeah. And we're gonna do scaffold dev. So it's now going to be in 3 images locally, tag them, and deploy my application with those tagged images to the local cluster. Once the application is deployed, it's going to show me the logs for it. So it looks like the application is deployed. I can play with it. Cloud endpoints, I guess it's this one. Wrong. Data prep, maybe this one. Yeah. Data prep. I have no idea. Okay. We're gonna change the sources for the application and see it being rebuilt and redeployed very quickly. So here are the sources for applications. Each of the microservices is here. I'm going to go to the UI, static. There is an index.html there. And we're going to with love. So it's going to rebuild only one Docker image, redeploy the application with updated images. It's going to watch the changes for additional changes. So if I refresh my application, I should see it build with Skaffold with love. You see, that was very easy. Just let me show you something else. So while Skaffold Dev is running, of course, I can see the application being deployed to my cluster. So I can see the database, the UI. And as soon as I do Control-C, there's a cleanup phase that deletes everything that was deployed during the dev cycle. So it will delete the DB, UI, and API microservices. So that if I list what's going on, it should be pretty empty now. Okay, that's it for today. But there's even more to it in Skaffold, so please give it a try. The project is on GitHub. If you like it, please tell us so. And if you really like it, please contribute to the project. Thank you.